the amount of experience that you get very early on in any corporate environment is siloed out. I believe I'm a grade 1 to 10 guy in terms of scaling up businesses. I don't really believe in a numbers game.
Do you consider HR a more important function or a finance more important function?
Say HR. Any business or company is run by people.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the right people, then even the best systems can fail.
Welcome to Visionaries Uncensored, an honest conversation with leading entrepreneurs who are experts in their field, who have created businesses and now are successfully running them. Today, I'm in conversation with Tushar Singh, a second-generation entrepreneur. Tushar started his career at KPMG in the UK, returned to India to join his family business, and currently leads the commodities, venture investments, and industrial automation pieces with the Sara Group. Welcome, Tushar, to Visionaries Uncensored.
Pleasure to be here, Rohan.
Absolute pleasure. So, KPMG, India, let's go back. We were briefly talking about earlier about your education. Maybe we can start from there. So what inspired you to strive for Cambridge?
Well, I think self-motivation in a way. I think also a need to, I think as Indian children, we sort of are, we do feel the need to prove ourselves to our parents. And I think getting admission to Cambridge for my master's was sort of a very important benchmark to prove that I sort of had a handle on what I'm doing.
Nice.
So that's self-motivation, I guess.
Makes sense. And then the journey to KPMG and the other things that happened in your life while you were in London.
A lot happened. My wife now was then my girlfriend. So it's been one of the best additions to my life was in London. I think KPMG was also motivated by the fact that I wanted to run on my own and earn some stripes before I did come back and join the family business, which was always the plan for me. I was always motivated to come back and join. But I wanted to get the experience of working outside on my own. And so I remember I applied to 32 companies. I had 7 interviews and 2 offers, one from KPMG and one from Shell. But I took KPMG largely driven by my wife now, Kate, because she was in London and I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
And Shell wanted me to move to The Hague.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was a great couple of years with KPMG. I mean, I worked with a diverse range of clients across industries. I spent 4 months in the forensic division.
Oh, wow.
Working on a drug investigation for the Majesty's government. So I remember we had a key-locked room and very late nights doing analysis on how drug was being shipped from Spain to England.
Right. So this is real narcotics drug. We're not talking about pharmaceuticals.
No. Real drugs being smuggled into the UK. And so, yeah, I'm very thankful for those experiences. And those relationships, I'm still in touch with my boss from that time, who's now a dear friend. And we've worked a lot with KPMG at Sara over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So, it's been great.
Awesome. And so interestingly, a lot of times when people want to eventually move into a family business, they tend to join either their own family business at like a junior level or sometimes it's a similar line of work. This wasn't exactly a similar line of work. Yeah. So do you want to kind of work for a challenging environment to prepare you for your family business? Was that the case?
I think the amount of experience that you get very early on in any corporate environment is siloed out. So I don't think it gives you any technical know-how that I could bring back. What it did give me was an opportunity to work with peers and bosses to understand what it takes to report to people, to understand what it is to start right at level 0, and also to build in culture, professionalism, and certain things which are more generic, but I could bring those back into the family business when I did join.
Got it. So at what, I mean, obviously you said this was a pre-existing plan, but did you have like a roadmap for yourself? Hey, I'm going to work for KPMG for 5 years, change gears, or at some point KPMG decide, okay, enough, I've learned, now let me move. How was that transition?
I think my stint with KPMG was shorter than my roadmap.
Yeah.
I had probably planned to be there for about 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a big opportunity that came across where we won the tender to build Gopalpur port in Odisha. And I think we needed more hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so my father and I had a honest conversation saying, look, there's ample opportunity now.
Yeah.
So come back.
Mm.
And so I did.
And this is the early liberalization time.
No. This is 2006.
Okay, so the second wave of things opening up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's been, I don't think it was linked to liberalization as such, but it was just an opportunity for us specifically in a group where our commodities business was growing, our textiles business was also growing. We had just set up the textile manufacturing business in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So that was getting steam. Our commodity business, like I mentioned, we had invested in railway rakes at that time. And we also won the tender to develop the port. So there was a lot to do in terms of driving growth. So
makes sense. We were talking earlier, and you mentioned you call yourself a businessman and not an entrepreneur. What in your head and heart are the differences between the two? What makes a man a businessman, and is businessman a subset of an entrepreneur, or are they two different things? What's your thought on it?
I think why when we were discussing earlier, why I mentioned that as well is that I think I'm not structured to be a 0 to 1 guy.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to start a business from scratch, I probably would find it difficult, or it's not core to my personality.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe I'm a great 1 to 10 guy in terms of scaling up businesses, and I don't think they are mutually exclusive. I think there are elements of entrepreneurship that you take into being a businessman. And there are lots of great learnings from businessmen that I wish young entrepreneurs can learn, but that only comes with experience. So I think that's really how I define it. But I think there are lots of entrepreneurial things that I have had to do as well in my journey.
Yeah, I mean, you did set up multiple entities on your own.
Yeah, look, our expansion into China 20 years ago, setting up our venture capital business in 2012 were all new initiatives.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is I didn't start from 0. I did start from 1.
Got it.
That made the difference.
So does that mean because you were a second generation entrepreneur, your risk appetite was different? Or
I think so. I think fundamentally there is obviously a certain level of comfort, lifestyle that you are already used to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's also challenging in many ways, because as a second generation you need to drive motivation which may not come naturally.
Yeah.
I don't say that for myself. I think I'm very motivated to grow and achieve things on my own. Having said that, it is different when you are second gen, because you're sort of used to certain things, and that reduces or may reduce your motivation or risk appetite at times.
So in your case, do you think because you were second generation, it drove you, like you mentioned earlier, you wanted to prove something to your father. Did that drive you even more? Even though you had the comforts of coming from I hate using that term, but you're coming from a successful background, and
I think ego also plays a role, right?
Yeah.
When you're young and you've, let's say, gone to Cambridge, which was the case with me, or got a job with KPMG in the UK, you sort of feel that you've earned your stripes.
Yeah.
But the reality is that running a business, building a business needs a complete different set of skills and rigor.
Yeah.
And so I think part ego and part the way I wanted to do things allowed for that self-motivation to sort of be there.
Yeah.
So and my father gave me actually a lot of freedom when I joined the business to try and do new things and endeavors. So yeah.
So you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you're an entrepreneur. You're a second generation entrepreneur.
Okay.
You because I mean I keep looking at, and we've been talking for a while now, not just today, but you've never come across as somebody who takes his advantages, as a chip on your shoulder. I've always found you very approachable, sweet, nice, grounded with realities. You know, somebody who's talking sense at any point in time, at any of our conversation, and always kind of taken back something new, something that I've learned from you every time, and which is in my mind some of the core attributes of an entrepreneur. You know, you make your immediate surrounding more intelligent than they were when you started the conversation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yes.
Okay, I'll take your word for it then.
Lovely, lovely. Going back, so KPMG structured, structured to the point where your in time is structured, out time may not happen, might happen.
Yeah.
I'm assuming KPMG UK is the same as any other sort of similar firm.
Yeah.
To a point where now you are the boss in India. You know, you could decide what time people would come in and what time people would leave. How did you manage that transition for yourself? Because, and the reason I'm asking this, for me, one of the most difficult shifts in my life when I moved from being an owner, from an employee to becoming a business owner, self-discipline is something which I needed to keep a check on 24/7. Because I decided the tenure of the office, I decided the discipline of the office. And while I could walk in at any point in time, you know, if I walked in at 11, everybody else would walk in at 10:45. How did you kind of, you know, shift gears or did you not feel that change?
No, of course. I think there is definitely a change, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't start as a leader, right? In our family business, I started as a trader in our steel business, and I believe that, like parenting, in many ways, leadership is also about leading by example, right? So it's one thing to say that be humble, for example, but you are not humble. Then people don't really follow that. With regards to my discipline, I think I've been a reasonably disciplined person most of my life. And even now I sort of lead by example, which is that I'm in office at 8:30 in the morning, which is very early by Delhi standards. But I've seen that over the last 10 years, increasingly my teams are happy to come in by 9 as well, because I also allow them flexibility to leave at 5 if the work is done. And I don't like to get stuck in traditions, in the sense I don't want to be somebody who says, no, you have to be in office till 6 or 7 when there's nothing to be done. I don't think that those are the kind of values I have, or philosophies I have when I sort of look at business or leadership. So I think leading by example sort of solves most of the challenges anyways, right?
Absolutely. So most of the entrepreneurs I've known in my life, successful ones, they've always they seem to start the day early. So is there like a secret being taught in entrepreneur school that if you wake up at 5:30 you'll be more successful? Tell us all.
I don't think one size fits all. In my case, and I don't think it's a secret, right? I mean, you have Robin Sharma publishing the 5 AM Club books, and you have the Gita ji, which talks about rising early and before the sunrise. Having said that, I think everybody should find out what works for them. For me, waking up at 5 works because it gives me about 2 hours of uninterrupted time to do what I need to do in the morning. It could be journaling, it could be meditation, it could be my workout. And so when I'm done by 7, and it's very important for me to meet my children before they leave for school, so it just fits the bill very well. What it does, of course, the downside is that it adds a little bit of inflexibility to you, because the days I don't get a chance to wake up at 5, then my days don't go as well as they should. Having said that, I won't change it for anything. I'm very happy with waking up early. And I think that solitude is important in life, right? You don't get, all of us who run businesses don't get that during the day. So,
and funny enough, I've started doing it for about a week now, and that 5:30 to 7:30, that those 2 hours in the morning that I'm just literally just spending time thinking, is probably like the most beneficial 2 hours or the most productive 2 hours that I have in the whole day. Otherwise, after that, I'm just firefighting one thing after another.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people spend time ideating at that time. I typically don't do business work. It's more sort of internal self-reflection work. But I think that adds value to when I get into office.
So circling back to business, 3 very different entities that you manage. little bit of, obviously, there is some amount of correlation besides the fact that you own all three of them. But tell us, how did it happen? What is the genesis of these three entities? How are they different? How much time do you share between the three? Love to hear more.
So my family owns the businesses, not me. Coming to the genesis of three businesses. So if you look at our commodities business, that's our oldest business in the group. It's been around for 30 years. And that's how my father really started the group. Because I've seen him up close building the business, there was always this inbuilt passion for commodities for me.
Got it.
And I started reading books on commodity trading very, very early, both fiction and non-fiction, both technical and non-technical. And I still enjoy the run and the energy of a commodity trading business. Of course, I have had self-doubts about that business myself, in the sense of how does trading exist in a world where information arbitrage doesn't exist anymore. But I think I've sort of learned that there is a larger role for us to play than to call ourselves traders. I like to always tell my teams that we are more supply chain managers than traders. And I think that's how we are building that business out now. The industrial automation business is a company that we acquired about 18 years ago. And from being a pure vanilla garmenting machines business, we've now on the route to converting that into a more technical and geotechnical textiles solutions business. And our Dominor, which is our venture capital business, was set up in 2012 by me. Only because I was very clear that there will be an eruption in this space in terms of opportunity to invest and create wealth. Second, I had big passion for supporting early stage entrepreneurs, and I had a very clear sectoral thesis on consumption, which we followed really at Dominor. In terms of time split, I'd say about 50% of my time goes into the commodities business, and 30% in Dominor and 20% in Magnum, which is our industrial automation business.
Got it. So in terms of investing, so there's a lot of hoo-ha on creating unicorns. What are your thoughts on unicorns?
I don't even subscribe to these words. I think it's fashionable I mean, we've seen, since 2012, we've seen 3 cycles of early stage investing bust-ups. And I think for us, what we've told the companies that we have invested is that build a sustainable business. Of course, there are times you have to, press the pedal on growth. But it cannot be done in isolation, in a situation where, because free money is available.
Absolutely.
And I think the investors also owe a responsibility to how they invest.
Exactly.
And if you look at this brands, house of brands play over the last 3 years, most companies have gone belly up. But money was being thrown at them by investors. So I think it's also a very important responsibility for us to help businesses become sustainable, right? And I think coming from a family business background, I sort of bring that thinking a little more than maybe other investors.
Talking about investments, so a little birdie told me you've been largely responsible for building these 2-3 companies that I could find about, where you help their revenues increase substantially. Do you want to talk about those?
Look, I think first of all, I have to be very honest. I have always been an engaged board member, but it is the entrepreneurs who run these businesses.
Of course.
And they get 100 out of 100 marks in terms of rigor, effort, grit. But yes, I think our first investment actually was a company called Fab Alley, or India, the brand. And of course, seeing their story has been something that is phenomenal, and kudos to the founders there. But we've seen a bunch of successes in our portfolio. And I think for us, there's a lot of learning as well that I take back, because how a young entrepreneur looks at building a business. gives great inputs to what we can do as a family business, which is sort of a little more set in our ways. And be it technology, be it culture, be it how you look at people, recruitment. For example, ESOPs, right? A family business would typically never look at ESOPs. But we don't look at ESOPs, but we have built in a system that allows our top people to, benefit from the growth. So I think there's a lot of learning for us as well. But yes, it's been a great journey with Dominor.
So circling back to the company, what, as a very active board member, what were some of your suggestions, ideations that you did with the leadership team of the company, which helped them grow? And they did grow a lot. They're still growing.
I think it would be a mix. I think it would be a mix of products. So for example, expansion into new product categories is somewhere where I think I have contributed a little bit in terms of what one should not do, maybe more than what one should do. I think another area where we've made.
Sorry to interrupt, but do you want to talk about what product they should not do? If you don't mind sharing.
I mean, I think there was a time 15 years ago that they were looking at getting into men's fashion, which I was not convinced on. And while they did a trial and we were supportive of that, they themselves came to the conclusion that it probably was a category not to enter. Then supply chain is another area that I think we've been able to add value because of our network, our understanding of textiles generally as an industry. I think also brand thinking, right? I think, and that's probably one area where I am personally very passionate. I think how to think about a brand, how to think about brand building, product placement, ideation are areas that I think I have contributed a little bit.
So and so you're on board about 5 companies, if I remember the number right.
Yeah, should be right.
This is in addition to 3 that you run.
Yeah.
So how do you take out the time for these 5?
I think it's structured. I think as long as it's planned, I think we overestimate how much time it takes really. To well, I think we at times tend to think we are busier than we are, and I like to keep my calendar reasonably free. But it's very planned. So my reviews, be it whatever reviews I do weekly, monthly, quarterly, are all structured for the next year. So in April, my calendar set till March 25. And I think that gives me clarity in terms of when I'll be doing what, better time management. And I think I do travel a fair bit, but I think the reality is that technology has helped and allows me to sort of get into these reviews even if I'm traveling.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't think it takes up that much of my time. I mean, a board meeting a quarter isn't too much of.
But there's a fair amount of ideation that goes for that board meeting, right? It's not just walking in.
Yeah, I think that sort of also reduces with time, in the sense that once businesses scale up to a certain level, they have their own identity, they have their own trajectory and their own velocity, and you sort of let that run. And I'm always available to these founders because we are very close, and so whenever they want to reach out, we always set up a call. But it's needed less with time.
Got it. What does your calendar look like? Like there's a time when I was trying different colors for different things, and I suddenly realized my calendar looks more like a Rangoli like calendar, and I was like, it all needs to go. It looks nice, but it wasn't super planned. To entrepreneurs who are starting up, what would be your advice on them planning their day? How should they go about it?
I think keep it simple. My calendar has no colors, just one color. How I operate is I've isolated 2 days a week for Dominor.
Got it.
So 2 half days. And I think it's actually very mathematical. So if I look at the split of 50, 30, 20, and the number of hours I work in a week.
Which is how many?
So 8:30 to 6 typically. And then Sundays maybe 2 hours. But my point is that once you know that, you are able to know how many hours you need to give to every business. And what I do definitely like to do in my calendar is have elongated periods for a particular business. So I wouldn't do 1 hour of Dominor work followed by 1 hour of commodities work.
Got it.
So I would rather have a full day on commodities, do all my reviews then, because I think focus is important.
Your brain is tuned to that business.
And
that makes sense.
So that's how I operate, and I think that's how I would recommend to most people set up their calendars.
That makes sense. So people who don't have necessarily multiple businesses, they could probably functionally divide their
Absolutely, you
days.
could have a day to focus on marketing. It could be a day to focus on, and I think it's easier. Maybe I'm making it sound easy because I do have the privilege of being able to own my time a little more than some other younger
and your leaders
entrepreneurs.
you can delegate things to.
Yeah, so it does make it easier. But at the same time, I think I would suggest that one aspires to get to that level where you can own your time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the milestones of success, right? When you decide when and how.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Great. And then we briefly covered this, but how do you plan your weekends? I mean, you talked about your work days, which are sorted, starts early, ends early, but weekends.
I think weekends are by and large dedicated to family, right? I think I love spending time with my kids, my wife.
Yeah.
Sunday is typically a family lunch at my parents' house. And I don't really like to put too many things in a calendar, right? I mean, my kids have taken to pickleball recently, so I go with them and play on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And look, I don't have a very large social network, but I have a few very, very close friends. And if we are meeting up on a weekend, then sure, there's a party to be done. We'll party.
And that's a perfect reason to segue into professional networking. I know you're you are a member of a couple of these, which I consider real business networking groups. I've seen some of the people who've really kind of added value to each other through these networks.
Yeah.
You being not necessarily the most social person, as you yourself have said, what do you think do you think that's something that's important for an upcoming entrepreneur to build that network, or is that something that, or let me just leave that. Do you think that's something that's important? If yes, how should one go about networking?
I think the jury is split on that, and my view is that I think networking is important, but I think it's it probably is a lot of people want to substitute quality of product or service with networking, and I don't subscribe to that view. So you can push through a substandard product because you have a great network is not a view I subscribe to.
Absolutely. And it doesn't last long,
Exactly. But is networking important? Absolutely it is. It's not something that I enjoy myself. But then again, I have the privilege of being second gen. So I have professionals who are able to support me in that. But I think it's important, but I think it will be balanced with building out actually a core business which is good.
And how would you propose an upcoming entrepreneur, not necessarily in the same line of work, but any upcoming entrepreneur, how should they build a professional network? I mean, social network, pretty much everybody has one. Not everybody has the privilege of being in an IT, because if you come out from IT, you come with that organic network. You come out on IIM, like in your case, come out from Cambridge, or you work for KPMG. You have that very organic network that you end up with. Something like me, I passed out from a fairly unknown university. I didn't go to any of these, I didn't work for any large organization other than Reliance. But how would you suggest somebody like me to build, a successful professional network?
Yeah, that's I think you put me in a quandary because I just said I'm not really good at networking. So how do I but okay, so this is my thoughts on it. I think there are platforms to leverage, right? I think at a certain level you have alumni organizations which even if you're not from any of the big schools, there are great alumni organizations that are becoming more and more active. My own school, which is Delhi Public School, has become far more active on alumni in the last 4 or 5 years than they ever were.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of getting inspired from what a Dune does or what a Modern does. I think that's one. I think, I think there are communities out there that allow you to become members of that would open up doors for networking. I think conferences, which are sectoral specific, at times can add tremendous value for networking. And I think entrepreneurs now as a community in India generally is far more open, far more agile, and there's a new confidence around it. So I think there are so many platforms around entrepreneurial communities today that I think one should definitely make use of.
Makes sense. What would you consider as having achieved success? What do you have like a milestone? Like I said, like for me, it's not being able to think when I'm making a purchase, do I have enough money? Or being able to buy anything for my parents at any point in time is for me, that's my benchmark for success. What have you decided that, hey, this is when I would consider Tushar Singh, I've made it, I'm successful?
No. I think from a professional standpoint, I don't really believe in a numbers game. I think I'm very clear that my goal, and I'm the internal measure of that goal, is to create a world-class business. I know that we are not there, but I know that we are putting the right stepping stones to get there in time, in terms of the quality of people that we are hiring, the kind of process that we follow, the kind of values that we sort of run our business with. And I think perpetuating the business beyond me at a scale which is much larger, at a quality which is much greater, will be something that I would consider success, but I don't measure it in numbers.
That makes sense. Talking about people, and do you consider HR a more important function or a finance more important function?
I'd say HR, simply because I think HR is, I think we are in any business or company is run by people. And if you don't have the right people, then even the best systems can fail. So definitely HR. When I say HR, I'm talking about people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very happy to have helped you there with some of your people. But sort of slightly segueing from there, what do you consider certain attributes as must-haves across all levels, across all functions in your organization? If yes, what are they?
I think integrity is right at the top. I think integrity not only from a perspective of honesty, but also being able to self-reflect, right? Because even when you become more and more senior and successful, we sort of lose that ability to act with integrity to our own selves.
Absolutely.
Right? We don't see our blind spots, for example. I think competence is obviously right up there, number 2, because you got to be good at what you do. Whether that's through honing your skills in a particular category, or some people are born with innate talent. They are great salespeople. And third, I think, is flexibility. I think in today's day and age, I see there are so many moving pieces to what we are doing. And if people are not able to bring in flexibility to their roles, I think they will struggle. And we would want to have people who have that flexibility.
And as somebody in the part of the HR community, strangely enough, I thought younger people would be more flexible, but I've seen more and more younger people being less flexible they want more structured roles, they want more structured time outs very early in their career. I don't think when I started working, I've ever asked anyone, what's my in and out time. I've never asked anyone, do I work 5 days, 6 days, 7 days? Do I have a fancy coffee machine in the office or not? Do you think is my observation incorrect? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, I generally feel that there is an increasing sense of entitlement amongst the younger generation that's coming in. But I think that's also limited to people who are coming in from the top schools.
Got it.
Or maybe tier A cities. I think what we've started doing is that we've actually said, let's get people in from tier B and C cities, because there we don't see any of this. We see hunger, we see drive, we see a desire to learn and grow. And what that does, it puts the responsibility on us to train them. But I think that's the right solution for us. Because one, we can't compete with the biggest people for recruiting the top guys.
And the fancy coffees.
And also we don't have the bandwidth or the wherewithal to deal with the entitlement there.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I think, and the interesting observation, case in point, without naming roles, and the person was somebody that we hired recently for you. Not necessarily from the biggest town, but very hungry. The reason why we loved him for you was because, he wanted to prove himself, he wanted to learn. And the first observation that he came out of the room when he met you was like, I can learn so much from him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the minute he said that, I'm like, okay, I know this is the right person.
No, absolutely.
So,
and I think we are seeing it. We're seeing with this gentleman on the job that he's showing that flexibility, he's showing that integrity, he's showing that desire and hunger, which is really what you need and what you should have at that age.
Yeah, and again, integrity, very, very conveniently, I think people these days, the entitled people these days, keep thinking of integrity from the other side and not necessarily integrity to your own job.
Yeah,
I think that's a very important aspect of integrity. Have I really done my full day's job today? Have I added adequate value to myself and to my organization? I think that's something that is diminished somewhat.
Yeah.
As a leader, how do you ensure that's kind of instilled back in your people, other than the fact hiring people from smaller towns? But
I think again, partly it's leading by example. I think, and second, I think I have been studying, Gita ji now for close to 10 years, and I try to get in whatever I have learned through my teachers to come into the group and do trainings, because I think a lot of this is self-reflection.
Yeah.
Right. If you're more self-aware, you know exactly what you're doing at work. You are more aware of your contribution. You are more aware of your blind spots. You're more aware of many things about yourself. And I think all of this is internal. So we definitely try to bring in those principles and try to teach our people, try to share with them what I have learned in my journey. Second is obviously, like I said, which is actually the first point, is leading by example, right? And I think eventually the culture is built, it's a flywheel, right?
Yeah.
When you start putting these few things together, you start seeing the culture being rolling in the right direction. And I think a lot of it also involves letting some of the people go.
Yes.
Because some people will not change and they will not fit in. And to be able to take that call, even if they're high performers, if they're detrimental to your culture, you probably have to say bye to them.
I totally agree with you there. Something I've been thinking of, we were talking, you run a fairly interesting widespread business. You have offices in quite a few countries around the world, which probably take out time from different times of the day. How do you manage that? You have offices in China, in Africa, in Europe, and these are all different time zones.
Yeah.
How's that managed?
To be honest, other than travel, it's not an issue, because we've sort of set up, like I said, calendarized our reviews at a time that works for everybody. So if it's a review that needs my Africa team, my China team, my Dubai team, and my Delhi team, we'll sort of try and set it up towards the middle of the day. Yeah. Luckily, we are not dealing with America, which would make it slightly tougher.
Or Australia.
But I think Europe and Africa are sort of the same time zone. Dubai is fine, and then China is also. So I think we are able to manage just by calendarizing it in advance.
I know when I was in Nigeria, I was running recruitment for a company, and one of my biggest challenges was, so we had operations in China, Hong Kong, India, of course, Middle East, Nigeria, Ghana, and in the UK. And China would wake up very early, and they would expect their first emails to be responded to when they were sending out their first emails, which was about 4 a.m. my time? No, before that, when I was in Nigeria. So half of it was probably just expectation management.
Yeah.
That, hey, I am not in China. I will respond to you. You're important for me, but I will respond to you 9 a.m. Lagos time and not 9 a.m. China time.
Sure, absolutely.
So did you have to have those difficult conversations ever?
Not too much. I think one, because of our size, we're not a really large organization, right? It's not that we have hundreds of people.
I had 5 people in China. So
I think one is, expectation management is important, but I think more important is empathy, right?
Yeah.
I think our Chinese people empathize with our Africa team, and they know that they're not going to reply at 9 a.m. China time. And 2 is also alignment. I think all of us are very well aligned in the same direction. And that links into what I said earlier, is that we have our own model of incentivization, ESOPs, which make sure that everybody is aligned together. So you're moving in the same direction. It's not that the African team chooses to reply late.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be very similar to a Chinese, to my Africa team expecting the China team to reply at 6 p.m. Africa time, which is not going to happen either.
They're fast asleep there. And so India does fit into smack in the middle of it all. You know, I'm assuming that happened because you were based out of here. But say if you had to kind of, you know, you could turn back clock, or maybe you today were starting up all these companies. Where would you consider your headquarters and why? More importantly, why?
It's a tough question, right? In many ways, India sort of is the place to be at the moment for many reasons.
Yeah.
Having said that, my commodities business doesn't touch India, but my investments business does.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose, I think I'll have to look at this in silos. If I had to set up my commodities business today, I'd probably look at Dubai as a hub, because it's got a very, very strong connection to Africa.
Yeah.
Very strong banking infrastructure, and also Hong Kong would be a good option.
Yeah.
If I look at Dominor, I would choose India again, because simply we are based here, we are investing in this country. No, because one, I'm investing in India.
Okay.
I'm on the ground here, and there's no better place to be then. My industrial automation business is also fully focused on India.
Yeah.
Even though we have a very, very strong CEO who runs that business, I think because our market is in India, it would just make sense to be based here.
So you would restart out of Delhi itself or different city? I'm just curious. What
I'd stay with Delhi because I just don't think I know enough about any other city in terms of having lived there.
Okay.
Right? I mean, people talk about Bangalore weather and Bangalore traffic.
Yeah.
Or Bombay smell and Bombay people. So, you know, great people, terrible infrastructure.
Yeah.
Delhi is great infrastructure or good infrastructure. You know, so I think it's a mixed bag. And every city is like that globally.
Makes sense. Yeah, I wish somebody could take like not even like Bangalore, but like the Pune weather, Delhi food, Bombay's professionalism, and you know, mix it in like a nice weather place. That'll be like utopia. And,
idealism.
Yeah.
I don't think
one can hope. Yeah. Great. It's been lovely talking to you, and we would hope to kind of circle back and talk to you some more at some point.
Thank you, Rohan. Such a pleasure. All the best.
Thank you.